Okay, I have the picture that Sue posted. She was really interested in this triple tier slider card. And in looking around, we found that there are a number of different versions of cards like this, and she found this particular one. She was able to make this one on the right, following the pattern that was in this demo that she saw. And then she posted that she was able to make this card, which was very interesting. And then later this week, I saw this interesting card, which is a freestanding pop-up card. As I got to thinking about a card I want to make for my husband's birthday this week, I thought, you know, I might be able to combine the two of these to make a card for my husband. He loves fishing, and this is a picture of my husband. I actually traced it and created this fisherman picture. And this combines the triple slider card idea with the pop-up box. So I thought I'd show you how I did that and go through the basics. Some of these boxes are pretty simple. The boxes themselves were posted at Split Coast Stampers, and they have a lot of potential, so hopefully you'll get a little bit of motivation to create something of your own. Sometimes you just have to think about it for a little while and you'll come up with all kinds of interesting ideas. So the first thing I'm going to do is start with the instructions that they gave at Split Coast Stampers for doing this triple tier slider card. It helps to have a starting place. I did make adjustments to this to make it fit.
Julie, if you can hear me, I have lost your audio.
I just had to make sure that it worked before I decorate it. That's why mine is not so fancy, but at least it gives you an idea of how these might work together. So the first thing I'm going to do is do a basic triple slider card. Now they're not all done the same way, but this is just one way and it did work, so I'll show you how I did it. I'll open a new page. Well, I'll just do that here, the new page, and get started with this. The size of this, the basic card, folds up to be a standard A2 card, which is 4.25 inches wide, and with the tab on top, it comes up to about 5.5 inches tall. So we want to start with this particular shape here, and most of these shapes were made with just simple rectangles. This one measures 11.5 inches by 4.5 inches tall. So to get that, I'll click on Basic Shapes, type in SQ, and double click on the square and resize that. I would like to make it in the 0x position and 0 on the Y, and then we'll make the width 11.5 inches and then the height of 4.5 inches and press enter with the green lock icon. And I think I'll put the mat on the green setting so that we can see through it. And I'll put some snapping on, maybe 1/4 of an inch, and that'll help everything kind of pop into place that we need. This one actually said it should be 11 5/8 inches wide. I'm going to change that. And we can use fractions in these numbers, 11 space 5/8. And notice what happens when I press enter. It actually switches to 11.625, so it changes the fraction to a decimal. So we'll use that particular number. And I did put all the measurements in the notes just so that if I need to, I can always refer back to these measurements. So this is the main card. And then the next one, this serves as a bottom card. And then the next one, the first middle slider, is 10 1/4 inches by 3 1/4 inches. So I'm just going to click on that, hold Control Shift and drag, and 4 1/4 inches tall, so 4.25, enter, and 10 inches, 10.25. Make sure I got that right, yes. Okay, and then there is another piece. The third piece for the slider is a tab, and it goes in the top of the little pocket there, and its size is right here, 3 inches by 3.7. So I'll double click on that square to get another one. So we have a 3-inch by 3.5 inch. Press enter. This one has a little tab at the top so that it can be pulled out, and to make the tab I'm going to add a circle. I type in CI and double click on the circle to add that. Now the total tab was 3.75 inches tall, and the pull itself is a 1/2 inch above the shape here. So when I select it all, I see it's a little taller than the 3.75. So this would be probably 3.25 inches tall, so that now I get the total height. I do want to center these, so if I type V for vertical alignment, then the circle lines up perfectly with the square, and you notice that I have the plus in the center of the shape lined up right with the top of the shape. So now to make that tab, I'm going to select both of them and then click on Weld, and now I have my main shapes for my card. This would be the first tier, second tier, and third tier. Now they also give the measurements for putting in mats and the decorative pieces of paper to go on these, and you can follow those from their website. And I can maybe post this into the chat so you can get that and see the measurements that they have for the different decorative elements. So I'm just basically going to show you the main design here. When you go to their site, you notice that they have instructions for hand making all these cards. Are not made using cutters, so they hand score everything. What I'm going to do is draw in my score lines. So I'm going to add a layer by clicking on the larger of the two green plus icons in the lower right corner, and then click on this figure 8 in the upper left corner to get my drawing tools. And I'll use the Bezier Draw, looks like a pen. And since I have my snap position on, these lines should go pretty easily where they need to go. So they say score at 3 7/8. So we have some numbers at the top of our virtual mat that can help us with this. I'll zoom in a little bit closer. And we want to make sure that we're drawing in the right place. So 3 7/8. Well, this is 3 3/4. I'm looking at that little triangle up here as I position my pen, and I'm going to get it halfway between the 3/4 mark and the 1 mark and just left click. Oh, well, it won't work because I have snapping on at 1/4 of an inch, so I've got to change it to 1/8 of an inch to allow me to get closer to that. And so I left click there, and then I right click at the end. And that allows me to get a perfect mark in the perfect place. The next one is at 7 3/4. So I would come over here to the 3/4 mark, left click, and then right click. Now on this one over here, it wasn't supposed to go all the way to the bottom. It was only supposed to go to the bottom of the top card. So I can move it up, just grabbing the end. I probably bent it when I moved it. If I right click, I can need to be. This needs to fold in thirds, and it needs to be able to fold so that they don't crumple up, so the middle one doesn't get messed up when either of the sides are folded over. So I'm going to now click on the color icon on the layer and click on line style and select create new line style and adjust the line length so that now I have some score lines. If you prefer solid lines, you can keep them solid. I usually make my dash just in case I forget to use my scoring tool. If I have straight lines there, sometimes I cut up my cards instead of scoring it. But I can always change this if I plan to use a scoring tool. So the next piece is the center piece, and this one was scored at 3 3/8. So again, I'll get my tool and go to 3, 2/8 is here, 3/8 would be in between, left click and right click. I didn't get it all the way up. I can drag it up, right click and make sure it's a line. And then the other one was at 7 3/4. So I go to 7 3/4, which is right where this other one is. Left click right click. And again, I'm going to change the line style so that they all have the dashes. Now if I move this around, I might have a little bit of trouble, but I can break that line. Don't need to, it connected itself. Right click and break node if I have to, and use a break just to make sure. Okay, so now I have the main pieces. Let's see, what else do we need? We have these little slider tabs that are going to fold around slits. So the slits need to be drawn in a specific place, and these little paper pieces are going to be, the edge here is going to fold through the slit to the back and fold through the slit here. So to make those, I'm going to add a rectangle for the slash marks at 2 inches. And again, I'm going to add a new layer here and click on the square again, SQ. And I'm going to resize this to be, it's going to be 1 inch from the right side and a 1/2 inch from the top, and then this is going to be 1.875 by 2.5, 1.875 by 2.5, and enter. So this is supposed to be 1 inch from the right and a 1/2 inch from the top. Now to make it so it's not a square, but make it so that it's just 2 slits, I'm going to left click on the top line and hit my delete key to get rid of the top line. Left click on the bottom and hit delete. And now I have my lines a precise distance apart in the right locations. And I can join them, but they're already joined. And I could join them to the base of the card so that if I move the card, I don't displace them. So I'm going to select that, hold the shift key, and then click on the card and join. And now those slots are connected to the card itself. Now again, I need to do the same thing on the bottom card. So I've got this square here. Somehow this doesn't look right. And this one is going to be this one needs to be at I'm going to change this score line because it's in the wrong place. I've got it selected, and I'm going to hold the control key and move it. It's supposed to be at 6 3/4. So that's where it's supposed to be. And this box here is going to go again a 1/2 inch from the top. And it's going to be sized 2 by 2 1/4. 2.25 and enter. It's supposed to be 1/4 of an inch from the top of the card. And again, in from the side. I'm looking at my notes here just to make sure I've got it right before I join it. Okay, so again, I'm going to click on the node editing tool on the left toolbar. That's the second arrow, and delete the top line and the bottom line. I'll join both of those lines and with the card, and just click join or Control J. So now I've got my little slides. I need the little tabs now to go across those. So again, I'm going to click on the basic shapes, double click on this square, send it to its own layer. And these little pieces are a 1/2 inch tall, so 0.5. And they're 2.5 inches wide. So 2.5 by 0.5 and enter, and I've got 2 of those. Now I can put them where they belong. And I'm going to send these, they're already on their own layer, but I'm also going to add a new layer and draw in some score lines. Now the score lines on these need to be a little wider than the cut lines that this is going to slide on, because these are little tabs that are going to fold to the back. So I'm going to turn off my snapping and just left click and right click just a hair to the left. And I don't want to, I'm going to hide these score lines so that they're not in the way. Left click, right click. And you don't even really have to draw these in, you can just fold them by hand, but I find it easier to know where to fold them. If you connect to one of the previous dots, it'll take on the attributes of the previous lines, which I don't want because they're solid lines. And then I'll do the same for this other one up here. And you need to see where the lines are. Left click to start a line, right click, left click. Don't want to connect to that other line. You can see why it's nice to have snapping. I could do a 1/16 of an inch, maybe that'll help. Okay, so now I have those lines and I have all my tabs. And the only other thing that we would need to add maybe is decorative elements, mats, journaling blocks, things like that. But basically what will happen with this, if I kind of zoom out, is that this tab here will go on this little piece of paper here. These will fold under the lines. We'll put adhesive, heavy adhesive tape, double stick tape right here. And then this piece will adhere to that and line up at the top of the card. The tab will stick out so that it will be a pull tab. Then this piece comes around and covers this up, and this piece will fold around the back and glue it so that it will ultimately just be as wide as this piece right here. Once this piece is all folded and ready to go, then we fold back this, tuck under the two little end tabs through the slot, put some adhesive again on this slider, which will slide up and down those slots. And then we're going to, with this all folded up, we're going to put it on top of this piece, lining up again the top, and then folding the rest of the card around the back and front and gluing it so that the entire piece is about this size with the tab sitting at the top. When you pull the tab out, then the little slider comes out and then the other one comes with it. So as I show you my picture, you should be able to see the effect. So this is the pull top. This is the slider, the smallest slider. This is the middle section, and this is the bottom section. So what I decided to do, in addition to making the 3-tier slider standalone, was to go ahead and make a base for it to fit in. So these all three can telescope back in, and the outer part, the box part, will actually slide up and close so that it ends up being an A2 size card that I can put in a regular size envelope and mail. So before I show you how to do that freestanding pop-up card portion of the design, do I have any questions about this triple tier slider card?
There are currently no questions.
Okay, so I'll go on to the next, the freestanding pop-up card. Now this one's very simple. The pop-up card was designed, and again, this is split coast stampers where you can see a video and written out instructions for putting these together. Again, I'll put the site in the notes over there so you can grab those. It was designed to have a tag, and you can decorate the tag however you want. And then it has this card that just has mountain folds. Each one of these folds just folds back, and I'll make it this way so we can see. Then you can add any decorations that you want, but the card itself slides through this slot, and once it's slid through and this tab folds back, it's a mountain fold, you put adhesive on this tab, and then the front part of the card, the bottom inch, gets glued to that, and then you put adhesive on the back piece as well, and this folds under and it attaches to the back of this card. And when it slides up in the hole, it's standing up, and when it slides back down, it's flat to go in an envelope. So to make this one, again, I use a rectangle that is 11 inches by 4 1/4. So I'll start with a new page here, get a rectangle or square, and line it up with X is 0, and Y is 0, and 11 inches and 4.25, enter. And again, I'll go to the green mat so you can see. And we'll do, let's see, 1/2 inch snap position. So I can draw, we're going to score at 1. So I'll add a layer for my score lines, because if we put them on the same layer as the card, it would take on the same attributes. So we want the card to cut, and we want the score lines to score. So I'm going to, at 1 inch, left click, and right click, then 2 3/4. I'm going to have to change a snap to 1/4. 2 3/4, left click, right click. I'll have to move this one down. And 3 3/4. This will give us our 1 inch sides. And 5 1/2, which is the center. And 7 1/4. Left click and right click, 8 1/4 for 1 inch. Left click, right click, and then 10 inches. Left click and right click. So we're going to have the edges that fold under and actually hold the card in place, or each of these ends. Now what I'm going to do is select all of these, line style, create new line style, and adjust the spacing, and click OK. So I have my card, it's ready to go. The only thing that's needed now is at 5 1/2, and I didn't get this middle one at 5 1/2. So I'm going to move it over to 5 1/2. Down the middle of the 5 1/2 mark, I need another square because I need the slit for the card. So double click on the square, I'll send it to its own layer, and this one needs to be wide enough to fit the card. I'll make that 3.2 inches tall by 1/8 of an inch high. I'll rotate it to get it right. Now I'm going to, with it selected, I'm going to select the card here and just type stack S. And take this one back down to 0. I want this to go down. So if I hold that shift and select this, I'm going to type H to align them horizontally. And this needs to be 1/8 of an inch wide. And I'll type a V to vertically align it with the card. So now I have my score lines. I have a slot, and now I have some of these little dashes go through an empty spot. I can double click here and double click here, then select the center and hit my delete key, so it removed this center dash line where I don't need it. And that's the base of the card. So that is really all there is to it. We can go back to contrast. We can see here, I can add color. And then all it's needed is to fold it up. It's quick and easy. So I'll show you one more time that this is the card as it is hidden inside of this base here. See this slit at the top? And then here's the card all pulled out. Now when I did this particular card, I had to change up the slider portion. I had to make it a little narrower so that it would fit in this little slot. So instead of being 11 inches wide, I had to change it a little. And let me see if I can show you here. Instead of this being 11 inches wide, I had to make it 9.5 inches long, but the height stayed the same. So all I really had to do was change up these pieces to make them shorter so that they would fit in this little slot once they're folded up. The other thing that I added on the front of this card was a place to hold the gift card slots. So I just found a gift card holder and borrowed its slots and put them on there. So these are some of the shapes that I used, and then again the pictures of the finished card.